the journalist who I was with at the time had brought some posters with him, some Smiths posters, and said, "Oh, it's not for me. It's for my nieces. Will you sign these posters, please?"
And he invented eBay, and years later, and sold them for. No.
I think they genuinely were for his nieces, actually.
Oh, well, okay.
And so Morris said, yes, no problem. That's absolutely fine. And he said, I've just got my pens that are in the hall, and he had one of those vestibules, the way you kind of, so it's a flap that you pull down, and it's got a writing surface. I suppose in the old days you would have had an inkwell.
Like bureau.
Writing bureau, that's a vestibule bureau. And he pulls out a drawer, and in it are all crayons of different colours, ranging from red through to, well, it would have gone to ultraviolet if
was
it
it in like
in
colour
order. In order, from
crayons.
warm to cold.
Yeah, starting to make sense. Okay, I always had Morrissey down as a crayon collector.
You can see it now. And so he puts the posters one at a time down flat on the vestibule, on the writing bureau, and then he sort of looks and picks a colour very deliberately, and then in his scroll, because I'm sure you're familiar with the way what this writing looks, it's very childlike, you know, and it's quite pedantic. So I'm just like, wow, this guy is really different, you know, really interesting, you know, everything's different about him. So that was, a little bit of Morrissey insight. But oh yeah, he had a car as well, and he couldn't fucking drive. He had this one, you know, Golf GTIs, the convertible ones. He had a white one of those. They're just beautiful. Even when you see them now, they still look excellent, don't they? And so he had a car, and it was under a lean-to outside his house. Half a house. He had half a house, the ground floor, as I say. And so whenever he wanted driving somewhere, he'd phone his friend up who lived down the road, and he would drive him. He's passed his test now.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I read that in the book.
But he had a Jag in about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Did he buy a Saab as well?
You have a Saab?
Yeah, I think he might have had a black Saab. Yeah.
Is that to remain sort of a bit?
Yeah.
You know.
I think European, Scandinavian.
To look Scandinavian. To blend
black
in.
Was it a black Volvo?
Kurt had a Volvo as well.
I think it was a Saab.
Kurt had a Volvo if it was a Volvo.
Did he?
Yeah. There was some irony to that, wasn't there? Because he'd go and score, but he'd go in a Volvo because it's the safest fucking car in the world.
Didn't work out very well in the end, though, did it?
It wasn't safe, was it?
No, not at all.
So what else? Oh yeah, right, Morrissey, we were on to Morrissey. So he came round, I had a studio in my house. So I had a nice big room with a bay window, so I could use that as kind of lots of lovely natural light. And I had a tenant at the time who lived downstairs called Craig, and Craig was like one of the biggest Smiths fans going. But I'd failed to tell Craig that Morrissey was coming over because he was just so busy, you know. He's just like, just slipped my mind. And the doorbell goes, and I'm setting up the studio lights upstairs. And I'm thinking, I'll go and get that. But before I could go downstairs to get the door, Craig's come out of his room and opened the front door to Morrissey. So I get there, and Morrissey's looking really awkward, and Craig is stood at the front door going, Craig, this is Morrissey. And so Morrissey just walks straight past him and goes upstairs. Craig didn't mention it once after that.
And he's still in shock, he's still in catatonic state.
He's not talked to me for years.
Looking at your website, I mean, I still, over the last few months, blown away by these amazing images. I mean, you know, a lot of them the ones that have just been on of the hacienda,
Uh-huh.
they're almost Renaissance-like.
I think people forget how colourful the house was because they only ever saw it in the dark. And you know, these are. I'm really pleased that I took the time to go and photograph it because those pictures weren't commissioned.
Oh, really?
I had some film left after a shoot. I'd been in the middle of Manchester, and I just phoned up the manager and said, "I've got some film. I'd like to just take some pictures of the interior of the hacienda while it's daylight." And he said, "Yeah, that's okay." And I'm just amazed that nobody else did, ever. In all the years that it was open, nobody else has got colour pictures of the beautiful architectural interior. Ben Kelly's got about 4 or 5, but that's it. You know, nobody else did it. There it is again, this, come on. Well, it's fab. That's Ian Curtis's memorial stone, which got stolen actually, so you can't see that one now. And in the background is was the crematorium on that. Early Happy Mondays. Let's just stop that. So that shot there was an outtake that I liked afterwards. Really, when I photograph for magazines, they usually want to see the face of the people in it. But I really like that.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah.
And it's never been used. It's only been seen here. Start it again. There it is. And that's down. You know where the BBC now is at Salford? Well, if the BBC's there now, and Coronation Street has just been rebuilt across the water, and apparently it's really massive. They've had to make Coronation Street really big because of high definition television. The old standard definition, you could make it look a bit. You could cut corners, but you can't cut corners with high definition. So they've had to, you know, all the detail is apparently, you know, real now. Young Sean Ryder. These photographs are in an exhibition at the moment in the middle of Manchester at the City Art Gallery. And if anyone's going into Manchester, I highly recommend having a look at this exhibition. I've just got 4 pictures in there, but what it's about is by a guy called Jeremy Deller, who's one of our Turner Prize winners. He's an artist in his own right, but he also curates exhibitions. He puts other artists together. Just wait for that to go. Jeremy Deller puts artists' work together and kind of themes it. And the theme of this one, it's a great subject. It is how modern music is so integrated into the working class movement, into people's ancestors. So what he's done is traced back Sean Ryder's ancestry about 7 generations to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Wow. And not only has he got their names and when they were born, he's got where they were born and what their jobs were. She says Brian Ferry's the interesting one because everyone sees him as being kind of middle class, but he ain't. It's totally, he's made it.
Oh yeah,
his own
he's
character.
Suave, isn't he?
He looks suave, yeah. But it's the same background as Sean, it's the same background as Noddy. But he's the only one that's gone, I ain't going to acknowledge that. I'll acknowledge my dad, you know, but I've broken the mould, but he hasn't, you know what I mean? It's great. So that's the great thing about great artists, isn't it? It just makes you think, look at it and see things differently or make comparisons. It's all about, juxtapositions and it gets you thinking. There's some fantastic paintings in there. It's just a whole eclectic mixture of stuff. And we've got to go back, haven't we, Claire? We really enjoyed it, but there wasn't time to take it all in, so we want to go back 2 or 3 times. But great, you know, fantastic art gallery, Victorian art gallery, and it's all about rock and roll and working class as well. Yeah. Wonderful.
I was saying that we often get the people here involved. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask Ian? I'm sure that.
Yeah, you're very welcome to ask us a question or heckle.
Oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, see what happens.
See what happens. See if we've got any intelligent quips back. Or do I crumble?
Yeah, maybe.
So before you could use flash and the ISO of the film, what ISO did you use? 800, 1600?
800 or 1600?
And shutter speed, 125?
Yeah, it had, yeah, so if I'm using a 125mm lens, pretty much 125th of a second it had to be. But you look at that picture that Penny Smith took of the Clash, you know, that's a long exposure. And you look at that picture and it's blurred as fuck, but it's about atmosphere, isn't it? So it's not about technical correctness.
I think the same with your photographs. If you use flash for half of them, it would have killed the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but that picture of Kurt, you know, Kurt crying, that's straight flash, just with the flash just off the camera. So I suppose that's just about the moment, the vulnerability of the man, you know. Yeah, flash just. I think what you're saying is flash just ruins
Well, there's two things.
atmosphere,
Two
flattens it
things
out.
making art. One, you've got 36 exposures when you swap your film
Yeah,
without ruining it.
that's right. There we go. That's about 20 something exposures there on that one.
And then two, you know, like, do you use flash or do you use natural? Or, you know, what lenses, fast lenses, or what primes, or what? You know, it just.
I use zooms, but f2.8. They start at f2.8, so as wide as I can possibly get. If they made them at f2, which lets in an awful lot of light, I'd be buying them. But they cost a lot of money, don't they? So none of my lenses are under £1,200. So it's not about the camera body particularly. It's all about the lens when you're doing documentary. But having said that, I'm going to contradict myself now, because really in the past 3 years, they've made the chips on these digital cameras so good that really, you know, the pushing the ISO really, really high now. So the other day, I just bought a Nikon D7100, so I can now get more out of it under low light. And they're coming on in leaps and bounds. So. But really, the camera bodies are still relatively cheap. The D7100 body is under £1,000, so that's pretty good. And with film cameras, 20 years ago, I was paying £1,000 per body, and that's 20 years ago. So really, photography is a lot cheaper than it used to be. But like the lenses.
Do you get the same access nowadays that you used to do, or not?
Do I what?
Get the same access.
I don't go to gigs. I'm sick of doing gigs.